Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today we're going to do something that a lot of you really enjoy, and that is do a few readings on things that are in the news and not politics. Let's deviate a little bit. I thought of three topics that are in the news. By the time this airs, some of them may have already been settled. I do these videos sometimes in advance, and so it's possible that it could be old news by the time I release this video. The first one I thought I would like to do would be on the cause of Betsy Arakawa and Gene Hackman's death. You notice that I put her name first. She died in the house with him, and his name is always spoken first, and so I thought I'd put this out there acknowledging her first. Although I can understand, because he is the more popular or the more better known name, that he is the one that is reported for first. But just for her sake, I wanted to put her name out first. The second reading, I'm still thinking about young Sebastian Rogers. For those of you, especially in the United States, who might be aware, last year in February, the 15-year-old boy disappeared. And for months and months, the news or the popular culture, YouTubers discussed what happened ad nauseum. I did a few readings when it happened. If you want to see them, it's probably in my True Crimes playlist somewhere. Excuse me. But he's been... And there isn't any new information popping up about him or anything like that. But I've been thinking about him for the past few days. So I wanted to do a reading on him, where we might find him. Not what happened to him, but where we might find him. And, I forgot the third question I wanted to ask. Darn it. Let me go meditate and see if I can remember what it was. The third question, I think, was my favorite question. And that question was regarding the person responsible for the death of Elizabeth Short. Now, this is old news. Elizabeth Short died in January of 1947, so we're going back 80 years almost. I'm not going to say the name or that she was more commonly known as. Her name was Elizabeth Short, and that's how I refer to her. I don't want to take away her humanity. But her case has never been solved, and there's been dozens of names thrown out there in the years since she died. I think it's safe to say that the LA police were notoriously corrupt. And they may have known who the murderer was, but money talks, nobody walks. We see that today in politics. So we know that that's a fact of life. But I have been wondering if Steve Hodell might be onto something. His father was George Hodell, a prominent surgeon of his day, extremely wealthy. He had the knowledge, the fascination with macabre, and a huge estate by which a person could pull off this hideous crime where no one else could hear sounds of torture. And I want to ask the universe for clues regarding who or how likely to verify whether or not George Hodell was indeed the person who took the life of Elizabeth Short. Now, there is a person who believes it wholeheartedly and has written books on the topic and speaks whenever he can regarding that, and it is his son, Stephen Hodell, and who is an LA police officer now, and he has a stellar reputation in the Force. Okay, okay. Now I'll flip the camera, and before I go into and the deck I'll be using is the Fortuna tarot deck. I've used it once or twice before in video. I'm sure I showcased each card. It's a beautiful deck, and I was drawn to it recently. I was drawn to it for the purpose of these 3 readings because it caught my eye the other day when I was going through my decks. The side of the deck says something, I guess, and I don't know what language. Fata, Vyam, Invenye. I don't know what language that is. But the translation is, fate will find a way. And for these questions regarding what happened or where somebody is, or who is responsible, I thought that sentiment, fate will find a way, was really apropos for these questions. Another thing, you guys are going to be seeing this in the background of my videos for a while. For those of you who aren't aware of what that is, I did a video 2 videos ago regarding a spell that I did regarding you know who, and what we as a collective spiritual community could do to bring about his removal from power. Everything is explained in the video, and what I forgot to mention in the video, I wrote in the descriptive area of that video. These cards was a reading I did yesterday, asking the universe, how effective will our collective efforts be? One of the things that really annoys me about, I don't want to say their name collectively, but the people who follow you know who, is when something happens, their response is thoughts and prayers. Because it takes nothing to do that. There's no effort in doing that. And I thought this is kind of ironic, this effort on our part, because it's an effort to beat them at their own game. Because we have intent behind our thoughts and prayers. And the reading I did, you know what? I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about this. The reading I did yesterday asking how effective will we be as a whole, if, for those of us who are participating in this, how effective is our collective effort? And not just in people who are participating in the spell work or prayer work, but people actually showing up, that's just as important, if not more, showing up for the marches and showing up for town hall, discourse, and participating in boycotts. Those are all things that are all important, and not just in this collective effort, but all of our collective efforts en masse. And I was very encouraged by this spread, where we had 8 coins, 10 batons, judgment, and the tower. And I'm not going to get into what the read was. If you want to know what the read, to me, how I interpreted it, go back to yesterday's video and see. However, I wanted to mention it at the time, but my memory is not always so good. However, but I went back and I perused all my former videos to find the one I was thinking of. And when I did a video in the beginning of January regarding what was going to happen in the year of 2025 for the United States, in March and April, the 8 of coins appeared in March, and in April, the 9 of batons appeared. Now, I realize the 9 of batons and the 10 of batons aren't the same card, but they're really close, They're really close, and this is just escalated, which could, to me, signify that it's, more people have joined the momentum. I see, clubs or the batons as a social kind of, social activity, social creativity, things that happen socially. And, I interpreted it then as a stability or well-being being restored, perhaps by a collective effort. And isn't this interesting that these two cards show up in succession in answer to this question that I had? How will our collective efforts, whatever they are, how effective they will be? And boy, oh boy, I thought that was really uncanny. So then I'm wondering, could this be suggesting, since these cards appeared in my yearly spread in March and April, could that be an indication that in March and April we'll begin to see some of it literally beginning to pay off? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'll be leaving this until whatever happens, whatever we're wishing to happen, happens. I'll be replacing candles as needed, because I'm keeping this going until the change happens. And I'm going to keep this out. It makes me sad because I love to use this deck, but I'm going to keep these cards out. So I hope it's not a distraction for you when I do my other videos. And for those of you who might have been wondering what this is all about, I'm just putting it out there today. And so there it is for posterity. If you want to know what it is, you now know because I just told you. Okay. Let me go into my meditative place to ask the universe to, let us know what we're meant to know regarding those three questions. And I'll repeat each of the three questions before I lay the cards for them. And I'll be right back. Okay, now full disclosure with Fortuna Tarot, it has lots of symbols that I'm just really not familiar with. It'll have symbols of planets, and it'll have astrological symbols. Now, my philosophy is you either know what the meaning of a card is or you don't. If you're a person who is coming to tarot from astrology, I think that the clues that are given to you, whatever, like here's a random one. Okay, I think that's a clue for Mars. I think the suggestion here, if you're not familiar with the tower, or if the tower is a bit of a challenge, this particular vision of the tower is kind of a challenge. Like, what are they talking about? If you know some, astrology, then you could pick up on the Mars energy, if that means something to you. Now, the problem with me, and here we have Cancer. So, the suggestion is moon energy, I think, right? Or whatever. I may be definitely oversimplistic in that. Now, my thing is that, those symbols may not really adhere to my understanding of what a card really means to me. So, I disregard them because they don't really mean anything to me. So if I interpret the cards in a way, and you're looking at the symbols and you're saying, well, that's not the energy that those symbols represent, I just want to explain why that would be happening. Okay. The first question: what was the cause of Betsy Arakawa and her husband Gene Hackman's death? Full disclosure again, my belief is that it was a calamity of errors. I want to put out there what my thought process was. The first thing I thought was, maybe it was something like carbon monoxide, because he, and the dog all died. But then when you think about it, like after a minute and a half, you think, well, they were extremely rich people and probably let me flip the camera again, and undoubtedly smart enough to have carbon monoxide monitors or alarms in their house. Just about every person has one of those things. And if you don't, you should run out and get one. So I thought, well, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't carbon monoxide. It could be. It still could be. That's a calamity of errors in a way. It's just not, it's there's no foul play. It's just calamity of errors. Something happened, that was beyond their control. Well, it was not something that was planned or premeditated or anything like that. Then the other thing that I heard other people say, which could be, maybe, for a second, is that one of them, maybe he fell and got hurt, and she saw that he passed away, and it was so devastating to her that she took her life. However, to me, that doesn't make sense, because you don't take a pill, drop the bottle, and fall down, So that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. The thing that makes the most sense to me, if I'm just, thinking about what makes sense to me, and as I mentioned when I began, is like a calamity of errors. Like perhaps he fell. Maybe he was having a heart attack and she ran to the bathroom to get his medicine. But then how did she fall? Like that would be such a weird thing if like he had a heart attack and fell, because his cane and his glasses were there. So it's obvious. And he was in the mud room. The floor could have been slippery or something like that. And if he had a heart attack and she was aware of it, she might have run into the bathroom to get his medicine. But then what would make her collapse unless she had a heart attack of her own? That is a real calamity of errors, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Or it could be that he fell. She ran to help him. The exertion was too much, and she felt that she was having a heart attack, and she ran to the bathroom to take her own meds and collapsed. That's a possibility. Another possibility is that she called for him because she felt she was having a heart attack, and then he came running through the mudroom and fell and hit his head and died. So, and the dog, well, it's easy to understand where the dog died, because he was either in a closet or a crate or something, and he just starved and, dehydrated. For whatever reason, anybody who has dogs, sometimes dogs are in kennels, they might have not have taken the dog out, yet, they surely didn't expect for them to drop dead and have the dog in the kennel, I'm sure. So those are my thoughts. That's what I think intellectually, intuitively, something like that happened, some type of calamity of errors. So I wanted to put my bias out there before I lay the cards. Alrighty, just one or two shuffles, and here we go. Three of vessels, or I think it's three elixirs. So it's water. Look, notice almost the evaporation of water. That's interesting. And here we have Cancer, which I guess would be moon, and I think that's Mercury, right? So for those of you who astrology means something, I guess it would be like the mercurial nature of the moon or something. Maybe it's a clue as to the timing. Maybe something was in Cancer, or maybe there has to do with the position of Mercury. I don't know. But if we just go by Three of Cups, and then I'm reading the card in the sense of seeing what to me is striking me as evaporation. There's, they were dehydrated, right? There was a lack of water. Their body was found in a mummified state a little bit. I don't know what that has to do with what happened to them, but it could be a clue as to timing, when something might have happened. We'll see what the other cards are suggesting. Another cup. Wow, that's interesting. Six of Cups. Well, 6 is a perfect number, and 6 is Six of Cups to me suggests love, contentment in the heart, good emotions, right? So and it's exponentially larger than the 3. Now the symbol we have here is the sun, and I think, is that Mercury? I'm not really sure what that is. I have a little cheat sheet. Scorpio, not Mercury, I'm sorry. I just saw Mercury. I just said Mercury and I knew it was an M one. So that looks like Scorpio. So Scorpio is like death? Is Scorpio? For those of you who know astrology, does Scorpio suggest death? Love. That's interesting. Let's see what the third card is and then the quint. Whoa. Keys in this deck are air. So we have attainment regarding, and what's this a symbol of? Excuse me. Mars and Gemini. For those of you that means something too. You know, I can't speak on it, but I just want to point that out for those of you who understand it. Wow. So air and cups, you know, aren't incompatible. So for me, it doesn't seem like there was anything foul about it. Their situations were concurrent, right? They, you know, water and air work side, you know, they're not enemies. They don't necessarily support each other. They're independent of one another and they don't affect each other. So maybe what happened to one was independent of what happened to the other. These could be suggestive of her being a woman, more feminine. To me, I view the suit of cups as water, as being more passive or feminine traditionally. You know, I'm not trying to make a statement about feminine energy. I'm a tour de force myself, you know, but I understand like the softer side and maybe, you know, in cards limited way of expressing maybe female energy. We have the moon card in there. You know, we have the, you know, maybe something happened to her. And then this would be his energy. I say this might be his energy because he was on the airwaves. He was on TV. He was in film. And isn't this interesting? Her collective number and his number are both 9. Isn't that very interesting? 9 and 9 is 18, so that would be the moon. Let me pull the moon card. Okay, so here we have the moon card, and as you see, we have the symbol of Pisces for, you know, that I think is associated with the moon. I think if you just know what the moon means, you know, you probably can disregard these symbols. I mean, I do, but I'm just pointing them out. So the moon card as the quint could suggest a few things. It could suggest that we may never know what happened. You know, it can remain speculative after blood tests are done and after forensic, you know, work is finished. Maybe they can't conclusively come up with an answer. That's a possibility. Another possibility is another card in the female realm, since the moon is sometimes associated with the ebb and flow of water and femininity, right? So is it possible that there was an event which originated with the woman, and perhaps he made a valiant effort to help her, and he expired, and 9 is the number of completion, right? It's the max, you know. When we have 10, you may say, well, 10 is the number of completion, but 10 means it's so over that it's put a fork in it, it's about to start again. So you can see it that way too. I see the 9 as being full potential before it begins to degrade. So I think he made a grand effort. I think he made a grand effort maybe to help her. And I think maybe that's what is being suggested. Because these 3 cards, 3 and 6 is 9 and 9. So I think that's and don't you think that's interesting? That their collective numbers are the same. And 6 cups suggests love, so there was no hatred in there. There was no, not that, of course, we didn't expect hatred, but there was, it was a loving event. Well, they died, but, there was something sincere about what happened. Well, that's very interesting. Okay, I'm going to go off camera now, and I'm going to ask the universe to shed light on where we might find Sebastian Rogers. Alrighty, I just asked the universe what we need to know regarding how we might find Sebastian Rogers, and to bring him to safety or to help him in whatever way is possible at this stage. Just bring him back. How can he be found? And I guess too, the clues might be where he might be, right? The Wheel of Fortune, Fortuna. I think that's Jupiter, that symbol up here. So for those of you who understand Jupiter, it may give you another layer of information. To the Wheel of, this is in place of the Wheel of Fortune. Look at how it is like an hourglass. And it's interesting because this hourglass, the sand is in equal proportion, which is kind of interesting. But, an hourglass can be turned, which can suggest a change of fortune. Could this suggest that there will be something that will happen soon? This maybe isn't answering where, but it might be answering when, that maybe soon there will be a change regarding the situation. Next card. Ace of Candles. Now we have, of course, fire here, right? The symbol of fire at the top. And of course, if you associate flame with fire, that's their connection. So, see? Okay, so we're still looking for where. I apologize for the sound of the municipal truck, too. Wow. Now here we have two different elements, and they're not at odds. They coexist. They're not in support of one another. Coins and fire and earth don't combat one another, but neither do they support one another. They just sort of coexist, much in the same way as in the last spread that the other two energies did. So we have land or earth. Okay, what is this symbol here? This is the symbol again, I guess, of Jupiter, and then this is that Capricorn? I don't know what that might mean to you guys. So we have fire and we have earth. Could it be a wooded area? I mean, when I think of, if I want to think of where, and I see, the suit of batons in my mind, this kind of means batons, be like an area where there could have been a fire or could be fire. It could be in a wooded area where there was a fire. Maybe there will be a fire, and the fire will make it more apparent where he might be. This is not not gospel truth. This is just my understanding of what these particular cards suggest. So bear that in mind. But could there be a change of fortune in finding him due to a fire on land? That's an interesting thought. Let's see what the quint card is. We have 10 and 1 is 11 and 2 is 13. I think we know what that means. Let's take a look at the card nonetheless for visual clues. And on the top of the death card, we have the symbol, I think that's Scorpio. Or is that Scorpio? I think that's Scorpio, right? I don't like what this spread suggests. And I hope my understanding of it is incorrect. But I think I can say that it seems as though there will be a change in luck in finding the young man. It may be in an earthy area where there has or will be a fire, or has been a fire, and that doesn't mean necessarily that we're talking about remains. We could be talking about a building in such an area, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be remains. Now, this card, in addition to that, perhaps suggests otherwise. But it's interesting that these two end cap cards suggest a change, right? A change, and then a change, a transition. If we have to see this card, at least we can see it as a glorious release. And it could possibly not mean what we're thinking. It could mean another aspect, and I don't want to dwell on it any longer. Okay, the last question is regarding George Hodell, and if he was the person responsible. I'll shuffle these off camera. Was he responsible for the terrible things that happened to Elizabeth Short? And I'm asking the universe for clues to verify whether or not that might be the truth. Alrighty, and a few more shuffles on camera so you know that this is not a prepared read. George Hodell. Wow, the Lovers. I think the person thought a lot of himself. We see that the Lovers in this card is represented by a mirror. There is a bond referenced, I think, in the Gemini, the twins. Maybe he didn't act alone. Maybe the person did not act alone. But when I see the Lovers card in this particular deck, and I see it as a mirror, there's a suggestion of someone, or there's a suggestion that we love ourselves, or perhaps that we love others in the same way as we love ourselves. I say that in this case because we have more than one person, right? So if we see ourselves in the mirror, and the card is the lovers, plural, it's not lover. So to me, the suggestion is that we love ourselves, or we love others as we love ourselves. Now, without the Gemini thing, I think I still would have come up with that conclusion, and I could be wrong in associating this with what I just said, but to me, without this, and I think it maybe works with that, is when I see the lovers, plural, it suggests that love yourself, but also love others as you love yourself. Okay, well, what's that got to do with George Hodell? Maybe we'll see. Wow, Fortuna. Wow. Jupiter. So these are all the higher order cards. These are triumph cards, which is very interesting. Let's see what this next one is. Okay, so we have 7 coins. Transition, wealth. What is that a symbol of? I'm drawing a blank. Is that Saturn up top? Saturn in, is that the bull? Is that like, what is that? Is that Aries or Taurus? Like a, oh, it has to be an earth. It has to be an earth symbol. So I guess that might be something like the bull. And then that's, I guess, Saturn. Okay, well, for those of you who that means something too. For me, 7 of coins, transition, moving forward with, wow, I'm not really. Let me pull the Quint card to see if I can bring greater clarity to this. And that's one of the wonderful things about Quint cards, is that it gives an extra layer of understanding. So we have 16 and 7. 16 and 7 is 23. I handled that simple math. 23 minus 22 would be 1. So that would be the Fool card. Let me pull it. Now, what's interesting about this Fool card? Well, it's called the Seeker. I think we have a symbol for Uranus. I have no idea what that means. And up here, we have an arrow, and then we have phases of the moon. So I'm not really sure what the astrological or alchemical or whatever message that this card is speaking. But I wonder if it was some type of magic. And we don't have the Magician card here anywhere, but this kind of makes me think of like a ritual. But it's the Seeker card, which is the equivalent of the Fool card. And I don't, get ritual from the Fool card. But I do get the sense of ritual from this, like it was something done with purpose. It would be interesting to know, as soon as I finish this video, and I'll put it down in this descriptive area, I'm going to look up the phase of the moon, or the condition of the moon, on January 15, 1947, which was the day her body was found. I don't know if that was the day her life was ended. However, I suspect it would have been within a few days, But I'm going to do that, and I'll put it in the descriptive area. Okay, let me go off camera and muse on what these cards could mean in the context of, was George Hodell responsible for what happened to Elizabeth Short? And I want to understand the clues and how they might relate to him. Oh, my goodness. Basic math. It's interesting. It wouldn't be the Seeker card. It would be the Magician. And yet, what I said, my feeling for what this might mean, really coincides perfectly with my understanding of the Magician card. It's so weird. The message came through with the wrong card, but I still got the impression. Okay, for the Magician, then we have, what is that, Mercury? So it's, and then we have the Infinity card here, symbol. Wow. So it was some type of, wow. This almost looks like a body, how her body was found. Her body was found in 2 parts. And I'm sorry, I don't want to be graphic, but her arms were raised over her head. Wow. So even though I deviated from the Fool card's meaning, I had pulled the wrong card by mistake, and yet this satisfies what I said with this card, really satisfies what the actual card was. And now we have the extra dimension of the position of, I think it was some kind of ritual. I think it was done as some type of ritual. I really do. That's what the feeling is here. And you know what? He was really into like artist Man Ray. If any of you are, want to look up Man Ray and his Minotaur, I saw it in, I saw this installation when it came to, I think it visited the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Either that or I went to New York, I can't remember. But I saw the installation of Man Ray's Minotaur. And Hodell would have been familiar with that because I think they were friends. Ooh, man. So I think this card, in case I missed what these meant, and I did, I'm not really sure I understand these cards, but I understand this card, and this card really does seem to connect him to, wow, to what happened. I still want to understand these cards, so just give me a minute off camera to see if I can understand more fully, so I can speak more intelligently on what these cards might mean. Oh, as soon as I turn off the camera, I think I grasped an understanding. Maybe he lured her with the promise of something. Maybe he flattered her. Maybe he tricked her into thinking there could be something romantic, or there was, she was obviously a girl who was down in her luck, and he probably could perceive of that very easily. He was a man of great wealth. And she, I think she looked worse for the wear. I think, she was a young woman who struggled. And I think a person with money would notice the little signs. So perhaps he tried to flatter her, to bring her in, promising her something, promising her a change for her life. Something he promised her to take her forward in some way, maybe to put her in movies, who knows, but to change her fortune for the better. I think that's what that means. Now these cards in itself could describe anybody, but he had the means to do that because she didn't have Google in those days, so she couldn't look up his name, but she might have known who he was. And she might have understood that he has had some money. I think that's what these cards mean. And then this card, which is the correct card, verifies that it was some type of ritualistic thing. And, I just can't get past the arms above the head. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so that's my take on these cards. Now, I know that I've showcased this deck, individual with the individual cards. Ooh. And I know I did something wrong. And I know I did a reading. I'm not going to shuffle it then because I messed it up. I think the original reading I did with these cards was for Grand Hotel because I'm going to do a movie video. I've been distracted by other things, obviously, and I know some of you really like my movie videos, and I have to do a movie video. But so I will. It's brewing. But one of the movies that I did was Grand Hotel, and that had like an Art Deco kind of theme, and so I used this deck to interpret questions that I had on Grand Hotel because I thought it worked really well. Now, for those of you who have this, this deck was given to me, as I mentioned, by a friend who happened to be male, and he would have ordered. I think it was a Kickstarter, and maybe the level of Kickstarter payment he made, maybe it entitled to him to more than one copy of a deck or something like that. So this would have been reflective of his tastes. And this deck is gorgeous. It's the one that in emerald, and it's really so beautiful. I think you agree with me. It's got like, you know, a flashy gold leaf. Now, because I'm a girl, I love pink. Pink is my favorite color. So, you know, as much as I love my historic decks, I think I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, Sebastian. As much as I love historic cards and, you know, serious decks, I do love a little bit of bling. You know, I love my Golden Tarot of Marseille. And I just love pink cards and stuff like that. And I know this deck came out. In like an opal color. And I'm not in a position at this moment to buy it because it's very expensive at this stage. And also with conditions being what they are, I think we have to be frugal with our money. I don't think I can be buying expensive tarot decks. I think I have to conserve as much as possible. But hopefully, God willing, when things improve, I will purchase the opal deck if I can find it. I think, you know, because it's no longer being sold, I don't think, unless somebody has it and they're just trying to sell it, you know. But at some point, on the hopeful side of things, I hope to purchase the opal. I think it was called Opal Omen, something like that. It also came out in amethyst too. So, but I think I'm attracted more to the opal. So, you know, things are hopeful when I'm able to purchase the opal. And then I'll do a side-by-side comparison of these. I think this is a beautiful deck. I really like this deck a lot. Anyway, friends, please, if you want to join us in our collective spiritual effort, go back. This will be 1, 2, 3. It'll be if you count this as 1, 2, 3, it'll be the third video back on the spell. And please feel free to join us in that. It could your spell could be praying every night. You know, that could be your spell. If you aren't inclined to do things like that, then participate, please, in group efforts of boycotting, of marching, of making appearances at town halls and stuff like whatever you can do to contribute to the cause of seeing you know who held accountable and removed from power. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, and be kind.